I moved back to my hometown just weeks ago. I thought it would be nice to reconnect with my roots. I wanted to write a community piece, something to spark interest. I remembered how my childhood home overlooked the Bishopsons' property. That old well always stood there, weathered and worn. The day I arrived felt like any other. The sun was low, casting long shadows on familiar roads. The town seemed quiet, almost too quiet. I walked around, feeling both comfort and unease. But then I started asking about the Bishopsons. That's when I heard the odd news their well had gone dry. First, I thought it was strange. I grabbed my notepad and headed over to their property. Mrs. Bishopson sat on her porch. She looked lost, tears in her eyes. I tried to ask her a few questions, but she barely responded. I felt a chill as I looked at the well. It was just an empty hole staring back at me. Later that week, I stopped by the local diner for coffee. The atmosphere felt heavy. Folks whispered about the well, their faces drawn with worry. I listened to wild theories someone was sabotaging them, they thought. I shook it off as gossip, but something kept bothering me. Days passed, and it got worse. Other wells went dry too. The woods felt darker, almost alive. One night, I decided to brave a walk. I felt a weight in the air, like something was watching me. I heard rustling in the trees. I stopped, heart racing. Maybe it was just the wind, but I wasn't sure. I saw animals acting strange. My neighbor's dog barked in short bursts. Their cat howled, like it had seen something awful. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I needed to dig deeper into this mystery. I wandered back to the Bishopsons' well. Shadows moved closer. The cold seeped into my bones. I was scared as I stood there, then I heard it, a low whisper, almost a sigh. I took a step back, afraid. That's when I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. Someone stood just beyond the trees, watching me. I tried to confront them, but they stayed silent. My heart hammered in my chest. A chill ran down my spine that I turned to leave, but then came a question that froze me in place. What have we done? I looked around, but no one was there to answer. The question echoed in my mind, heavy and dark. I hurried home, not sure of anything anymore. I thought of the people in town, their worried faces, and the dry wells. I knew I had to write about it, but I didn't know where to start. There was something about that well, the way it felt wrong, like it was hiding something terrible. Now, every time my childhood home stares down at the Bishopsons' property, I can't shake the fear that something is out there, lurking and waiting. And the question, what have we done? Hangs in the air, unanswered. The next morning, I woke up feeling restless. The shadows from last night lingered in my mind. I couldn't forget the whisper, the way it cut through the darkness. I decided to head to the town library. Maybe I could find some history about the Bishopsons or the well itself. As I walked down Main Street, I noticed the mood hadn't lifted. People avoided eye contact, expressions tense as if they were afraid to speak. I felt an unease settle over me. When I arrived at the library, the smell of old books surrounded me. I made my way to the local history section. The shelves were filled with dusty volumes. I pulled a few books down, flipping through pages of names and events. I found some mention of the Bishopsons, a family that had been here for generations. They were known for their kindness in the community. But nothing about the well caught my eye. Just stories of summer picnics and town gatherings, with the well often a backdrop but never a focal point. Hours passed before I stumbled across an old newspaper clipping hidden between two books. The headline read, "Town Faces Drought, Wells Running Dry." The article was dated 20 years ago. I scanned through it, feeling the chill creep back into my bones. Apparently, there was a major drought that year, and the Bishopsons struggled along with the rest of the town. That's when it mentioned something odd, a rumor about properties around the well being cursed. It was dismissed, of course, just small town chatter. I frowned. Cursed. It felt like something out of a horror novel, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that the past was somehow connected to our current troubles. Just then, a librarian approached me. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. "You're interested in the Bishopsons, aren't you?" I nodded cautiously. She glanced around, then leaned closer. "There's more to their story. You should speak to Mrs. Hall. She knows things." Her eyes darted toward the door as if someone might overhear. "Who is Mrs. Hall?" I asked. "The town's oldest resident. If anyone knows about the well, it's her." Her voice gave me a slight boost of boldness. "Where can I find her?" The librarian hesitated before telling me Mrs. Hall lived on the edge of town, at the old Margaret estate. It was a place I had only seen from a distance. It had always looked abandoned, layers of vines creeping up the sides, windows clouded over with the passage of time. That I thanked her and left the library. The sky darkened as I walked. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The weight in the air grew heavier. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I answered, and it was my neighbor, Greg, panic evident in his voice. "Come home. You need to see this. It's urgent." "What is going on?" "I can't explain. Just hurry." His voice trembled. An urgency clawed at me. I turned on my heel, rushing toward my house. As I neared, I saw a figure standing in my yard. They were dressed in dark clothing, the sun casting long shadows around them. My heart dropped as dread filled the air, and I realized that whatever awaited me at home might be even more unsettling than the mystery of the well. As I raced toward my house, my mind raced with questions. Who was that figure? Was it connected to Greg's urgent call? The form shifted slightly, and I caught a glimpse of a familiar face, but anxiety twisted my stomach. "Greg?" I called out, my voice shaky. The figure turned, and in that instant, I felt a wave of relief. It was him, but the look on his face made my heart sink again. He looked pale, his eyes wide and frantic. "Get inside," he urged, grabbing my arm and pulling me toward the door. "Now." I stumbled after him, the weight of his urgency pushing me through our front door. As we stepped inside, I locked the door behind us. I needed a moment to catch my breath. "What is going on?" I asked, trying to sound more composed than I felt. Greg paced the living room, his hands running through his hair. "You won't believe it. I was out by the well. I saw something strange." "What do you mean strange?" I asked, my pulse quickening. "Did someone else go out there?" "No, it was empty. The water, it's gone." "Gone?" I repeated, my mind flashing back to the newspaper article. "That's impossible. It's a well." He nodded, his face drawn tight. "I know, but I stood there. The water's just not there. It hasn't just lowered, it's like it's vanished completely." An unsettling feeling settled in my gut. The connection to the drought lingered in my thoughts. What does that mean? Is it serious? People are already saying it's a sign. They're talking about the curse. His voice dropped to a whisper, as if saying it aloud would summon whatever horror lay beneath the surface. "Some folks think it's the Bishopsons' doing. They were the last family here. Something bad happened to them." A shiver ran down my spine as I recalled the librarian's warnings. "We need to talk to Mrs. Hall. She might know more." Greg shook his head. "I don't think that's a good idea. If the townsfolk find out about the well, we can't ignore this. What if things get worse?" I interrupted, feeling an urgency that matched his own. "We need to know the truth." Just then, I heard a noise outside. A thumping against my door. My heart raced as I grabbed a nearby chair, ready to barricade it if needed. "What was that?" Greg whispered, his eyes darting toward the sound. "I don't know," I whispered back. The thumping continued, faster now, and with it came muffled voices. Let us in. Please, we need help. Who is it? I called out, my voice trembling. Just let us in. The fear in their tone was palpable. It didn't help the fear rising within me. Suddenly, I found myself wondering if opening that door would lead to the answers I sought or only deepen the mysteries that had already begun to unfold. I took a deep breath, glancing at Greg, whose face twisted with worry. What do we do? I mouthed, but there wasn't time for answers. The desperation of the voices outside intensified. Open up. Please. We need to get inside. I felt a surge of panic. What if they're dangerous? I whispered, my grip tightening on the chair. They sound scared, Greg replied cautiously. Maybe they know something. I don't care if they know something. We have no idea who they are. My heart pounded. I pressed my back against the door, the voices grew louder, rising above the thumping. There is something out here, something in the woods. We saw it. My breath caught. Something. What do they mean? Greg stepped closer to the door, tension rippling through him. We need to find out. If there is a problem, we can't just sit here. I hesitated, battling the urge to keep the door shut. But if they were right, if something was lurking outside, we had to know. Okay, fine. But we keep it locked just in case. Deal, he said. Gathering my courage, I undid the lock and cracked the door just wide enough to see their faces. Two figures stood outside, shadows flickering in the dim light. Their clothes were disheveled, faces smeared with mud, and their eyes were wide with terror. Please, we're being chased. One of them gasped. We need help. You have to let us in. I exchanged a glance with Greg. The fear in their voices sent shivers down my spine. What chased you? I asked, trying to sound steady. There is something in the woods, the second one said, voice quaking. People are disappearing. We thought it was just old tales, but it's true. The curse, it's real. Cursing myself for even considering letting them in, I swung the door open fully. Get inside. I commanded, stepping back to let them in. As they stumbled over the threshold, I caught a glimpse of movement outside, the dark outline of something shifting among the trees. Close the door. One of the newcomers shouted, eyes darting. I slammed the door shut and locked it again, my heart racing. What happened? I demanded, fear mingling with determination. We were up by the old Bishopsons' well, the first one said, breathless. We heard whispers, felt something watching us. And then it came out. We ran. What did you see? Greg pressed, his voice strained. It was like a shadow, but alive. It grabbed one of our friends. We barely escaped. A chilling silence settled in the room. I exchanged a look with Greg, we both understood too well what this might mean. Something had awoken, something dark and ancient, then, just as I thought it couldn't get worse, the lights flickered ominously before plunging us into darkness. The air grew heavy, the silence outside deafening. Who is there? I gasped, my heart lodged in my throat. A scratching sound rose against the window, followed by a low growl. My mind raced. Whatever had chased them was now here, too. I turned to Greg, panic settling in. What do we do now? And that is when I saw its sharp, large claws tracing patterns on the glass. We were not alone. The scratching intensified, claws scraping against the glass with a relentless urgency. My heart pounded in my chest as fear coursed through me. I felt trapped, cornered between the door and the looming presence outside. What is that? One of the newcomers whispered, wide-eyed and trembling. As I glanced around the room, the flickering candlelight caught Greg's face, illuminating his growing panic. We need to find a weapon, he said urgently, his gaze darting around. What can we even use? I stammered, knowing I was quickly losing my grip on the situation. My mind raced through the options. The kitchen. Our trusty frying pan. A knife? Anything seemed better than waiting to see if the entity outside would decide to break through. One of the newcomers, a girl with dirt-streaked cheeks, nodded vigorously. I saw a shovel outside. We could use it. Are you crazy? I shot back, feeling the weight of my hesitation. What if it's already in the house? What then? It's our only chance, Greg insisted, and I could hear the resolve in his voice, even as terror twisted my gut. Okay, I finally relented, my breath sharp and quick. We'll go together. But we stick close. No one wanders off. As we moved cautiously toward the back door, the growl outside became louder, a threatening rumble that resonated through the walls. I glanced back to see the two newcomers huddled close, their faces pale and drawn. Stay quiet, I urged, glancing at the kitchen where shadows danced in the dim light. We can't let it know we're here. I opened the back door just wide enough to slip outside. The cold air hit me like a bucket of ice water. I took a step into the dark backyard, scanning for the shovel. My grip on the door tightened, waiting for a sound that would send me scrambling back inside. There. Greg suddenly hissed, pointing toward the shed. It's leaning against the wall. I spotted the shovel, but I also noticed something else: movement in the shadows behind the trees. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end. I took a deep breath and steeled myself, my mind racing with what I might have to face. Don't look back. I urged, feeling a surge of adrenaline. With a quick sprint, I reached the shovel and grabbed it. The steel felt heavy in my hands, but it was reassuring too. Just then, a piercing scream cut through the night. It came from the direction of the woods. The newcomers flinched, and I could see the panic wash over their faces. Did you hear that? The girl whispered, eyes wide with terror. Before anyone could answer, the silhouette I had glimpsed earlier stepped out from the trees. It was tall, unnatural, and its form twisted like a nightmare. My breath caught as it moved with almost liquid grace toward us. Get back inside. I shouted, wielding the shovel. But inside, I knew, we had already crossed a line. There was no turning back now. That's when it lunged. The door swung open behind me, and I felt fresh air rush over my face as the light flickered back on. But my eyes were fixed on the darkness. Shadows danced, and for a moment, I thought I saw it smile. I didn't want to know what that smile meant. The moment it lunged, time stretched. I gripped the shovel tighter, my heart pounding in rhythm with the primal instinct to flee or fight. But as the creature descended upon us, I felt rooted. Greg pushed the girl behind him. Stay close. He yelled, but his voice was drowned by the creature's low growl, vibrating through the ground. The air was thick with a stench I couldn't place, a mix of damp earth and something like burnt hair. My pulse quickened and I braced myself, knowing the shovel was my only defense. The creature was mere feet away now, dark and jagged, with eyes that gleamed like polished obsidian. What do we do? The girl whispered, her voice shaking. Create space. I shouted back, swinging the shovel at the creature. My movement felt awkward, but the weight felt powerful in my hands, sharp and ready. I connected with the side of its torso, but the impact was minimal. The creature merely staggered, letting out a guttural roar that echoed through the night. The creature regained its balance, its eyes narrowing on me. I was terrified but also fueled by adrenaline. We needed a plan, and fast. Run to the house. I screamed, trying to rally the others. Now. Greg hesitated, darting a glance at the creature. What if it chases us? It's our best chance. I urged, backing up cautiously while keeping the shovel lifted in a defensive posture. But as I took another step, I felt a prickling sensation behind me. The back door loomed, an inviting escape, but dread pooled in my stomach. What awaited us inside? Go! I shouted again as I made the decision to move. We turned and barreled toward the house, the sound of claws scraping against pavement echoing behind us as we dashed through the open door, tumbling inside. The warm glow of the candlelight felt like a cruel joke in the chaos. I slammed the door shut and leaned against it, panting heavily. I saw Greg and the girl frantically look for something to barricade the door with. "Quick! Push the table!" Greg shouted. We shoved it against the door, the wood creaking under pressure. Every second seemed urgent, every noise amplified. Outside, the growl was closer now. I could feel the vibrations against my back as if the creature were inching toward us. What if it gets in? The girl breathed, panic rising in her voice. Then we fight it, I replied, my own fear mingling with desperation. I paced the dim room, scanning for anything that could help. The kitchen knives. A can of soda. But nothing felt adequate. I kept glancing toward the back door, heart racing. "There has to be a way out," I muttered. Then I noticed something strange. The candles casting flickering shadows around the room were melting rapidly. The flame danced violently, as if disturbed by an unseen breeze. That's when I saw it. A shadow moving in the corner, something slinking just out of sight. My heart dropped. Someone was in the house. "Guys, turn around!" I yelled, my voice laced with urgency. Just as I turned to face the others, the lights flickered unexpectedly, plunging the room into darkness. I felt a cold rush of wind sweep past me. Suddenly, the door trembled violently against the pressure from outside, and I knew our time was running out. The darkness consumed us, the only sound the frantic beating of my heart and the distant echoes of the growling creature outside. I squinted into the void, trying to make sense of the shifting shadows. "Where are you?" I whispered, more to myself than to Greg and the girl. "Can you see anything?" "I can't see a damn thing," Greg replied, anxiety clear in his voice. Then, a glimmer of light flickered on as one of the candles finally collapsed, sending a stream of wax down the side. It was a brief moment, but enough for me to see the terrified face of the girl, eyes wide and glistening. "We need to stick together," I said, finding what little courage I could muster. "We can't let whatever's out there get to us." From the corner of the room, a soft scraping noise broke the silence. I turned toward it, my breath hitching. The wind had gone, but the shadows seemed to ripple, undulating as if alive. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Greg's nod was hesitant, and I could tell he shared my growing dread. The girl clutched Greg's arm, her knuckles white. "What do we do?" I thought fast. "We have to move." We edged toward the kitchen, our best chance of finding anything useful. I fumbled for a knife, reaching blindly into a drawer as questions raced through my mind. Who was in the house? What were we up against? Suddenly, the growl from outside intensified, deeper and more threatening. If it got through that door, the door creaked loudly against the table. We shoved against it, a sound that echoed like a death knell in the stillness. My hands trembled as I finally found a sizable kitchen knife. It felt flimsy, but it was better than nothing. "Okay, I've got a knife," I announced, trying to project more confidence than I felt. "Let's get ready for whatever's next." But as I scanned the dark edges of the kitchen, I noticed something strange, a faint light coming from the pantry. I squinted in its direction, the source unclear but beckoning. "Look there," I said, pointing toward the glow. "There's something in the pantry." "What if it's the creature?" Greg whispered, voice tense. "It could be the answer." I stepped forward cautiously, gripping the knife tightly. The closer I got, the more the light flickered, an eerie blue hue. I reached for the door handle, hesitating as another shutter from the front door rattled through the room. "We don't have much time," I breathed, pushing the door open. The pantry seemed ordinary at first, but then I noticed bottles upon bottles of water sat neatly on the shelves. My heart sank. "It's just water, nothing but water." But as my eyes adjusted to the blue light, I spotted something at the back, a glimmering object, something wrapped in cloth. I reached for it, my stomach churning with dread. Then, a sharp crack pierced the air. The front door gave way. The table slid, the door swung open, and the growl grew furious. Panic surged as the creature's silhouette darkened the threshold. "It's here!" I shouted, clutching the mysterious object as a final surge of instinct kicked in. I had no idea what it was, but it felt like our only hope. The creature surged forward, pouring through the doorway like a shadow unleashed. Its growl vibrated through the air, raw and primal. I stumbled backward, instinctively clutching the object wrapped in cloth. Adrenaline coursed through me as I turned to my companions. "Grab something!" I yelled, but they were frozen in terror, eyes wide as they stared at the monstrosity. With no time to waste, I darted sideways, keeping the pantry between me and the creature. The blade felt like a lifeline in my hand, but it also felt ridiculous against whatever horror had just entered. Scrambling for the nearest bottle of water, I hurled it toward the creature in a desperate attempt to distract it. It shattered against the floor, sending droplets splattering everywhere. The creature paused, its attention shifting for a heartbeat. I took the moment to slip around the pantry door and shove it closed, using my shoulder to brace it. The handle rattled violently as the creature thrashed against the door. "It's strong!" I shouted at Greg. "We need to block it." He snapped back to the present and moved to help. The girl was still frozen, but Greg's voice cut through the chaos. "We can't just let it in. What do we do?" My mind raced. The knife. We need to find a way to defend ourselves. Look around. Together, we pushed more kitchen stools against the door, but they barely held against each violent swing. The pantry light flickered, illuminating my hand, revealing the object I had clutched. I pulled the cloth away, revealing a small, intricate crystal, glowing faintly. "What is this?" I mumbled, breathless. But I had no time for answers, the creature was relentless. Suddenly, a piercing howl echoed through the house. It was nothing like the growl, a sound that sent chills racing down my spine. It felt like the very walls were vibrating in fear. "Is it calling to something?" Greg wondered aloud, panic creeping into his voice. "Maybe we can use this." I held up the crystal as if it had just revealed its purpose. "What if it can protect us?" The girl finally snapped out of her daze, looking between us and the creature. "You think it's some kind of magic?" "Only one way to find out," I said breathlessly. I moved closer to the door, the crystal pulsing lightly with each growl from the creature. As it intensified, so did the glow of the crystal, casting strange, dancing shadows around us. "Let me try," Greg urged, his fear mixed with determination. He took the crystal from my hand and pressed it against the door just as the monster charged again. The impact shuddered through the blocked door. The moment the crystal touched the wood, a formidable wave of energy rippled outward, catching us off guard. The room brightened, and I felt a hum resonate deep within me. I didn't know what was happening, but the creature paused, its growl fading as a look of confusion crossed its monstrous face. "What are you doing?" I yelled, panic tightening my stomach. I don't know." Greg stammered, eyes wide as the light grew brighter. Then everything went dark. The light of the crystal pulsed once more and then extinguished, leaving us in a suffocating black void, with only the sounds of our ragged breathing surrounding us. "What just happened?" I gasped, my heart racing. "Something's wrong. We need to get out," the girl said, the fear in her voice palpable. As I tried to recalibrate, a deafening crash echoed around us, and I braced for the worst. Whatever was coming next, I needed to be ready. I felt the panic lift slightly as adrenaline kicked in. The pitch-black void was disorienting. It was as if we had stepped sideways into another dimension. "Stay close," I whispered, my voice barely carrying over the silence. "Is everyone okay?" Greg's voice trembled slightly. I managed to nod, but I couldn't see him. The darkness felt alive, pressing against my skin. "Flashlight." Someone must have a flashlight. I urged, my mind racing. We need to figure out where we are. Mine's in my bag, Greg replied. I could hear him fumbling, and in that moment, I turned, scanning the darkness for any hint of light or movement. The air was thick and unnaturally cold, sending chills down my spine. A click broke the stillness, followed by a dim beam slicing through the darkness. Greg's flashlight flickered to life, illuminating the pantry as if it were the only safe haven in a world gone mad. Shadows danced on the walls, twisting and curling with the light. What the hell just happened? The girl asked, her voice strained. I turned to see her face, strained but resolute. I don't know, I admitted, shaking off the confusion. But we need to figure it out fast. The crashing sounds began to fade, but an unsettling stillness settled in. There was no more growling, just an oppressive quiet. Maybe I hesitated, unsure of what to suggest. Maybe that crystal did something. I've never seen anything like it. Greg glanced at the crystal, now dim but still faintly glowing in the dark. It's like it created this space. But why? Is it safe? The girl asked, her voice shaky. What if that thing is still out there? Just as I opened my mouth to reassure her, the shelves around us began to shudder. A low whistle crept through the air, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. It felt as if the very walls of the pantry were trembling in anticipation. Whatever's on the other side, I thought, it's not gone. Suddenly, from deep within the darkness, a pair of yellow eyes blinked into existence, mere feet away. They glowed ominously, reflecting the beam of the flashlight. A guttural snarl erupted, sending my heart racing. Back! I shouted, stepping in front of Greg and the girl. I clutched the knife tighter, ready to confront whatever was about to come through, but before I could react, a force slammed against the door, rattling the entire structure. The shelves above me creaked ominously, threatening to spill their contents. Hold it! Greg yelled as he braced his shoulder against the pantry door. These weren't ordinary growls, this was something more. My gut twisted. It felt like we were on borrowed time. We need to move. We can't stay here. Where do we go? The girl cried, her eyes wide with terror. But as I scanned the room again, I caught a glimmer of hope. A window. That. I pointed to the small pane behind a stack of boxes. If we can get through, we might escape. Is it high? Greg asked. I don't care. We have to try. I didn't wait for more, I darted toward the window. But just as my fingers brushed the frame, a chaotic crash reverberated through the door. No longer sure if I wanted to face what might come next, I was met with the chilling realization that whatever waited outside the pantry was now desperate to get in. Just then, a loud shatter ripped through the calm. What was that? I whispered, adrenaline surging again. I don't know, Greg stammered, the grip on the flashlight shaking. Something else, something worse, I thought, dread pooling in my stomach. Get ready, I said, but deep down, I wanted to run. Run until I collapsed. I had a growing fear that whatever came next might be beyond anything I had prepared for. As I braced myself for whatever horror lurked beyond the pantry door, I felt an electric tension in the air. The walls vibrated, rattling not just from the force of the creature's slams but seemingly alive with a pulse. I turned to Greg and the girl, ready to urge them to climb to the window, but we were all frozen in fear. The growls morphed into raspy whispers, pulling at my sanity, echoing words I couldn't decipher but felt intimately connected to the heartbeat of the forgotten woods outside. With every crash against the door, I braced myself for the world to shatter. Find something! Greg shouted suddenly, breaking the trance. I turned my head desperately, searching through the shadows for anything that could offer some kind of defense. The pantry shelves loomed over us like silent guardians, holding history and secrets too dark to comprehend. I'll climb! I declared, urgency pressuring my voice. I took one last glance at the pantry door. The growling intensified, punctuated by the splintering sound of wood. Whatever was out there didn't he just want to get in, it was hungry that I pushed boxes aside, dreading the moment I had to leave the safety of the pantry. "Hold the door!" I yelled to Greg, who nodded, panic etched across his face as he braced himself against the door. With one last surge of courage, I pulled myself up toward the small window nestled behind stacked canned goods. "I can reach it," I grunted, my fingers brushing the edge of the frame. "Shatter it if you have to." My heart raced as I glanced back. The door buckled, wood splitting as if the universe was collapsing inward. The darkness seemed to claw at the edges of the room, reaching for us like a silent predator. It wasn't just the creature, it felt as if the shadows themselves wanted to pull us under. Just as I managed to grip the edge of the window, a thunderous crash reverberated behind me. The door splintered under Greg's weight, the energy shifting like a tide. "Go, now!" Greg shouted, sheer adrenaline pushing me forward. I forced the window open with all my might, glass shards glimmering in the flashlight beam. It was awkward, scrabbling through the small opening as the pantry door crumbled behind. I tumbled out onto the ground, falling hard but managing to roll to my feet. The cool night air rushed in, and a surge of freedom flooded over me. "Get through!" I yelled back into the pantry, glancing up at the faint glow of the flashlight illuminating their frantic faces. In that split second, I felt grateful. Grateful we had made it this far. But the trepidation of the unknown loomed just beyond the safety of the yard. A deep, low growl rumbled from the pantry, reverberating through the ground beneath me. I prayed Greg and the girl would be right behind me. "I'm here!" Greg shouted, his silhouette filling the space as he pushed through the window tightly, followed by the girl's slender form. We all landed outside, breathless and wide-eyed, hearts hammering against our ribcages. "Run!" I shouted, instinctively tearing off towards the safety of the trees, even though my gut twisted painfully, urging me to look back. I could feel the creature too close, its presence suffocating a shadow that hungered to ensnare us in its dark embrace that we dashed into the nearby woods, branches clawing at our clothes and skin. The moonlight trickled through the leaves, but shadows stretched ominously, twisting as if following our every step. Greg took my arm, pulling me deeper into the underbrush. "What was that?" he gasped, his eyes like saucers reflecting the terror within. "I think it's some sort of curse," I breathed in disbelief, recalling the tales of the elders warned in hushed tones. "It's alive, whatever it is." The girl stumbled, but we caught her. "We can't let it catch us," she cried, panic rising in a crescendo deep within. "We need to find that old estate, maybe Mrs. Hall can help us." I shouted over my shoulder, pushing through the dense undergrowth, the sounds of shadows behind us pounding like a relentless drum. With each stride, I felt the earth quaking, echoing the growl that had once filled the pantry. More than fear, there was this deep yearning in my gut to discover the truth, to either confront that well-anchored in mystery or flee from the unseen creature that had haunted my childhood for too long. But behind us, a sharp crack of branches warned us we were not alone. In my mind, the question spun wildly. What were we unleashing? Could we trust the whispers from the past? Each step echoed with uncertainty, the weight of our history mingling with the darkness. Now in pursuit. As we ran, I noticed a flash of something in the corner of my eye, a figure or perhaps an illusion. It seemed so familiar, I felt a pull toward it, as if it held the answers to the questions burning in my head. "I saw something!" I shouted, stumbling slightly before managing to quickly regain my footing. "Something in the woods." I glanced back long enough to see Greg and the girl still following, their expressions a mix of fear and resolve. But as we rounded a gnarled tree, I heard that whispered question again, a chilling echo in the night: "What have we done?" A moment paused, time suspended, caught between the past and the haunting present. The weight of whatever we had awakened pressed heavy on my chest, but then, I pushed those thoughts aside. We didn't have time for answers, not now. So we ran, deeper into the night, hearts pounding, chasing the flicker of hope, racing towards whatever lay ahead, our salvation or our doom. Only time would tell.